Welcome to PM in the PM. This is my podcast where I take a recent event and look at how it links to the ACCA Performance Management exam. And today we are looking at Artemis II, NASA's first crewed mission around the moon for 50 years. Now you might think, what's that got to do with variances or throughput accounting or budgeting? What's it got to do with PM? Well, actually quite a lot. And the reason is because behind that launch is something far less glamorous, and that is practice. And it's practice of a particular kind. I hope you got to see the footage of the launch, and it was magnificent, a moment of brilliance. But in reality, that launch is the result of thousands of hours of rehearsal, of simulation, and of failure. Because the NASA astronauts don't just wing it. They train in full mission simulators, which tries to replicate every switch, every alarm, every piece of metal, every piece of fabric that they're going to experience in their pod. They practice in that same replicated simulator. They also use neutral buoyancy labs, basically underwater spacewalk rehearsals, and emergency failure drills over and over again. What happens if something goes wrong? And here's a key point. They don't practice until they get it right. They practice until they can't get it wrong. What they're doing is developing muscle memory, brain memory, so they are almost on autopilot if any of these things happen. And that's the kind of mindset that we need for PM. So let's look at this in more detail. First, let's look at practice in the real environment. So the astronauts train in high-fidelity simulators, exact replicas of the spacecraft. What do you as a PM student have? You have the ACCA practice platform. I accept it's not high fidelity, but it's a very close replica of what you will get in the exam. And the best way to use that is as if you were in the exam. So not using your notes, not passive reading. Try and make it as real as you can. Do it timed. Try to practice using that platform as if it were the real thing. Exam success isn't just knowledge, it's about execution under pressure. So no books, no notes, make sure you do it timed, and make sure you do your answers as if you were doing the exam. What you are doing then is you're training your brain to react in that stressful under pressure situation and to get used to it, and that's going to help you no end in the exam. What else do the astronauts do? They don't just rehearse the bit that they like, the bit that they enjoy. They practice the hard stuff. They practice the things they aren't comfortable with. They practice the things they struggle with. They focus on system failures, on unexpected data. What does that mean for PM students? Variances. We see variances come up as a challenging area for students. Practice those variances. Use some sort of template that you can replicate in the exam to help you through, but practice using it. Optimal pricing calculations, another area where students constantly struggle. Practice doing them under exam conditions until you can do them very comfortably. Transfer pricing questions, another area where students repeatedly struggle. There's plenty of options out there to practice. And if you only practice what you're good at, what you are hoping is the examining team are going to give you the things you are good at in the exam. And it's very unlikely that that's going to be the case. They're going to mix up elements of the syllabus, some easy bits, some complicated bits, and some bits in the middle. So you can guarantee there's going to be some things in there that you don't like. Make sure you practice doing them. What else do they do when they're training for this mission? They use feedback loops. What went wrong? What decision did they make that was weak? What happened more slowly than they hoped? And then they review what could they do different next time. If they were faced in the same scenario, what would they do differently? Don't just do a piece of work and then forget about it. Make sure you mark it. Make sure you debrief it. Make sure you learn from your mistakes. The same with mock exams. Ideally, watch a debrief video. When my students give me their homeworks and their mock script for me to mark, I'm mainly interested in what they got wrong. What did they get wrong and why did they get it wrong? And then I give them recommendations on what they could have done in order to get that bit right. And quite often I see students answer section C questions. They give some sort of narrative answer that doesn't quite score, but it's close. And had you just tweaked it this way added in this little additional phrase, that would have scored the mark. What else do astronauts do? They rely on checklists. It's not because they're inexperienced, it's because pressure makes people forget things. So have you got a checklist that you can use when you're doing an exam question? Maybe a checklist you could use for a Section C question. Read all of the requirements first. That could be step 1. Step 2, identify the verb and maybe highlight the verb. Use the exam platform to practice highlighting. Is it asking you to calculate, explain, assess? Maybe number 3 is focusing on the easier marks. If there's a part A, part B and part C, which of those are you going to do first? Which is going to give you the most marks for your time? And then number 4, plan your structure. I recommend using a series of headings which map out how you're going to answer the question. And maybe number 5 is go back to the question and see if you have missed the word and. The word and appears in a lot of questions. Often there are 2 requirements hidden into 1. And then when you're answering the Section C question, don't just state what. You need to add something to that. You need to say why that's happened, or you need to say the what and the implication, or the what and link it to the scenario, and then stop and move on to your next point. The Artemis mission also doesn't just rely on those astronauts, it relies on a much wider team. They have engineers, they have trainers, they have nutritionists, they have psychologists, they have support teams. Hopefully you've got family and friends around you. Ask them to help you. Perhaps ask a close friend or family member to keep you accountable. If you say you're going to study at 5 p.m. every day, give them permission to call you out on it if at 5 minutes past 5 you're still looking at your phone. Your family and your friends will want to support you through not just PM but all of the ACCA exam. Can you form a study group? Have you got people at work who are also studying the ACCA exam? And obviously if you are using a tutor like myself, then tutors are there as part of your support group. And don't underestimate how important it is to look after yourself. Just like the astronauts, things like nutrition, exercise, good quality sleep, all of these factors will help you when you're studying and when you get to sit the exam. Next, I want to talk about failure. Those astronauts have failed hundreds of times. They've made mistakes, they've got things wrong, and failure is good. It feels very uncomfortable to think of failure as good, but that's how we learn. And the only way to fail is to try to push the boundaries. And this goes back to not just doing the simpler things, the things you enjoy. Do those things that are harder. Study those topics that you struggle with. And you will make mistakes, you will get them wrong. But then, by following a good quality debrief process, learn from your mistakes. Ideally write down what you would do differently next time. When you come up against a similar scenario, you've improved, you've moved a few steps forward. So next time you see a picture of the Artemis II, don't just see that rocket and those astronauts. Think of the preparation behind it. Think of what's gone on. And ask yourself, am I training like that? Because passing PM is a lot about preparation and practice. So many thanks for tuning in to PM in the PM. And I hope you found this episode informative. I hope you found some really useful bits in here that can help you as you go through your PM and other ACCA exams. Until next time, this is Richard Guyver signing off.